souvenir. All right, now the tricky bit. We got a piece of scrap over here. Try and hit that lead point exactly on the intersection there. Well, looks like we might be a little off. So you can see a little bit off. Should have lined up, should have just hit the tangent on that line. So I'm going to cut and hopefully intersect. I can trim it a little extra if I'm to one side. There we go. So clean that up. So this is the other plane we'll use today. This is the Stanley side rabbet plane, number 79. No longer made, but you can still find them. It has a bullnose piece here, and actually I had a project where I've found out why this does that little loop, which I can't remember at this moment actually, but this actually is functional. It's an awkward little plane though. I find it awkward to hold. It's got a lot of rough edges. The adjustment is extremely tedious. I've taken the bullnose piece off so you can actually go in as a chisel plane, because I have to get into this corner and the bullnose piece will hold it off. So I'm going to use this to straighten this up a little bit and move the line over till it lines up with that circle. And in order to help me do that, this is the depth gauge fence. I'm going to reset that to get a little extra reference, otherwise it's kind of a wobble. It's actually, I get a little bit of, this plane cuts in both directions. And if you've ever used a chisel plane, you know that's kind of awkward and hard to reference. And I want to try and get up there. I don't think we need to do this one much. So let me get the chisel and finish cleaning that up. So now we've made the template, we'll put it to use. So in this case, I'm going to dog up this sample board. Clamp the template down. Try and place the clamps out of the way. And first thing that was typically done was to drill out the nosing. And one of the reasons why the nosing is round on the stairs, this little part here on the stairs, is because it could be done simply with a brace and bit. And so you need to chisel out any square holes or anything. So simply the brace and bit was put here. Now I have a little trouble with this because when I use this thin template, it's hard to find the exact center. A thicker template, then of course you can place the bit up against the template. So for this, I've found that the Forstner bit seats in there very nicely, gives me nice registration. Try and get one that has a bit of a point. Some of them have nearly no point, which makes it very difficult to use freehand on the power drill. They must be used on a drill press. This one has a decent center point and we're up against the template, so we usually get pretty good results here. So drill until you're down to your depth. I think we're not quite there. We'll give it a little bit more. I think we're there, but it's not definitely critical. It doesn't show. If it's a little too shallow, it's a slight extra bit of work, but really not much. So next we score the lines that will form the housing. Now this is a homemade stair saw, dado saw, dovetail saw, often used for sliding dovetails. This particular version is one of the, and it's a copy of a traditional shape. Cuts on the pull stroke, and it's virtually the only Western saw I know of cuts on a pull stroke. It was made, I broke out a section of an old handsaw blade, and it was a rip saw, and I put a little bit of fleam on the teeth, and fleam is, rip saw is normally cut 90 degrees to the length of the blade. Fleam is angled slightly so that it scores the blades on cross grain, and a lot of this is not a true rip. It's a bit of a cross grain, and when you sharpen those teeth with the fleam, it severs the grains more cleanly. You get a cleaner cut. And I actually double beveled, secondary bevel on here, much like a Japanese saw, because the points of the teeth got a little too thin. It's easy enough to make all this. The hard part is you have to have 2 slots in the blade, and for my equipment that has to be hand filed, so that takes a little bit of time to cut those slots in there so you can adjust this blade in and out. The purpose of the adjustment is this sets the depth of your dado or your housing, and when it bottoms out on the wood here, then you know you're down to depth. This one I also use for sliding dovetail, so you can see the angle of the shoulder here. So I try and keep that parallel to the surface, and that brings me pretty close, if not right on, to the angle of the dovetail we're cutting in the housing. So try and get a decent start here. Keep it on the template. you get a good start, then it's easier to pick up a little speed. If you go at it from the beginning, you can come off the template, then you got kind of a mess you'd have to rework. So now I can feel it's bottomed out. It's not cutting anymore. I can feel it. It's gotten real smooth and the resistance of the cut is gone. So I'm done there. Try and keep the saw vertical and try and cut to the end. Up here. Okay, bottomed out. Now let's have to deal with this. Now, if you remember, this is not the actual line of the back of the riser or the tread. This is where the wedge will fit. Actual underside of the tread is here. And I'll try and make this transition yeah. Let's open this up a little bit. And let's see, we got a good cut here, so we're okay there. So we're done with the template. Now I try and keep that saw in that curve. Don't get too ambitious and jump out. And try not to overextend here, but try and cut to the end as best as possible. So you can feel it, but you can also see here in the sawdust. Sawdust is pushed aside, that's because it's bottoming out. So we're down to depth. Might need to double check there. We're down to depth, or a little shallow up there, but we'll get that with the chisel and the router pin. Try not to cut into that because that'll show on the stringer. But as far as we can go with the saw. We can clean this up. Try and get a nice transition here. Pretty good. To begin with, let's just not mess it up with a chisel. Doesn't hurt to open this up a little bit.